Okay, picture this. It's January 20th, 2025. And out of nowhere, the biggest names in the tech world just take a nosedive. This wasn't your typical bad day on the stock market. No, this was something else entirely. A single event just sent a massive shockwave through the industry, and it left everyone scrambling and asking one simple question. What on earth just happened?
And when I say nosedive, I mean it was a total bloodbath. We're not talking about a few percentage points here and there. We're talking a catastrophic freefall. Nvidia, the undisputed king of AI chips, lost a whopping 17% of its value. Broadcom got hit even harder, dropping 18%. Even a giant like Alphabet couldn't escape the damage. The message from the market was crystal clear. The game had just fundamentally changed.
So, what could possibly trigger an earthquake of this magnitude? I mean, it wasn't a new global crisis or some political drama. The answer wasn't in the world of finance at all. It was pure technology. A brand new player just walked onto the field and they were not playing by the rules everyone else was used to.
And the source of all this disruption? It was the launch of a revolutionary new AI that came out of China called DeepSeek R1. And let me tell you, this wasn't just another flashy product announcement. This was a declaration, a sign that the balance of power in the entire tech world had just been completely redrawn.
So what exactly is DeepSeek R1? Well, you can think of it like the super powerful engine that runs something like ChatGPT. But, and this is the big but, it has one absolutely earth-shattering difference. It's totally free and completely open source, which means the keys to this incredibly powerful, cutting-edge technology were just handed over to, well, the entire world.
But the story behind DeepSeek R1 is way more than just a cool tech breakthrough. It's a story of high-stakes geopolitical chess. You see, its creation was a direct response to that escalating tech rivalry between the United States and China.
To really get how we ended up here, you got to rewind back to 2022. That's when the US brought in these really strict sanctions. The goal was to cut off China's access to the advanced computer chips that are, the absolute lifeblood of modern AI. The idea was to slow them down, to hobble their progress. The result, though? Oh, it was something else entirely. And this right here, this is where the story gets just unbelievable. We're looking at a classic David versus Goliath situation. On one side, you've got the American tech giants spending hundreds of millions of dollars using tens of thousands of top-of-the-line supercomputers. And on the other side, you have the DeepSeek team getting basically the same result with just a tiny fraction of the resources. 1%. Let that sink in for a second. 1%. They built a world-class, cutting-edge AI for literally 1% of what it cost their American competitors. And the question that should be on everyone's mind is pretty obvious. How in the world did they do that? Well, the answer isn't magic. It's strategy. The DeepSeek team used this brilliant three-part approach that completely rethinks how you're supposed to develop AI. And it proves that, sometimes, being clever is way more powerful than just throwing money at a problem.
So, what was this big secret? Well, their strategy was just a masterclass in being efficient. First, they stood on the shoulders of giants. Instead of reinventing the wheel, they just learned from the AI models that were already out there. Second, they took a divide-and-conquer approach, breaking down huge problems and giving smaller pieces to specialized AI agents. And finally, they did all of this with a super lean, agile team that just put their huge bureaucratic competitors to shame. This quote just perfectly captures the whole idea behind that first strategy. Instead of trying to write every single book in the library from scratch, which would take forever, they just read all of them. They trained their AI on what other models had already figured out, and in doing so, they built this massive knowledge base for next to nothing. And this really drives home that whole smarts over scale idea. While US tech companies were throwing thousands of engineers at the problem, the DeepSeek team was this nimble little force of just 140 people. And their efficiency wasn't just about manpower, they used way less energy. This is exactly how David beats Goliath in the 21st century. People are calling this the Sputnik moment for the age of AI, right? Just like when the Soviet Union launched that satellite back in 1957 and it completely shocked the United States into action, the launch of DeepSeek R1 has sent this incredibly clear signal that the AI race is so far from over. In fact, it might have just seriously begun. And you can see just how fast people's thinking shifted. It was dramatic. In May of 2024, a major voice in tech, the former Google CEO Eric Schmidt, was totally confident that America was way ahead. But by November, just a few months later, his tune had completely changed. He was admitting that, actually, the sanctions might have backfired and sped them up. Little did he know just how right he was. It's really important to remember that a massive technological leap like this doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It's built on a solid foundation. And as this UN data shows, that foundation is China's absolutely huge and rapidly growing manufacturing base. This economic powerhouse is what's really fueling these incredible technological ambitions.
But maybe the most profound, the most important consequence of DeepSeek R1 is what you could call the democratization of AI. Now that this technology is free for anyone to use, what kind of amazing new innovations are we going to see? I mean, just imagine, startups in India completely changing e-commerce, labs in Brazil making breakthroughs in diagnosing diseases, maybe even students in Iran using it to fight corruption. The possibilities are just endless.
So here's the bottom line. The game has changed. For the very first time, world-class, powerful AI is no longer the exclusive property of just a few Silicon Valley giants. It is now in the hands of creators and entrepreneurs and innovators all across the globe.
But of course, this incredible new power also comes with some pretty heavy new responsibilities. As we step into this new world of AI for everyone, we have to face the really profound questions it raises about what our future is going to look like.
And we're now staring down a series of really critical questions. First, there's the question of control. In a world where basically anyone can get their hands on this tech, how do we stop it from being used for things like cyber warfare? Second, the question of who benefits. Is this tool really going to level the playing field, or could it just make the gap between the rich and poor even wider? And finally, the question of adaptation. As AI keeps getting smarter, how do we as humans evolve with it?
Look, the arrival of DeepSeek R1 is a fundamental shift. It's proof that real innovation isn't just about having the most money. It's about ingenuity. And it leaves all of us with one final, very provocative question. The most powerful tool maybe in human history is no longer just for the rich. So what are you going to do with it?